Explained by the Billy Meier contacts. Mysteries, myths, legends, conspiracy theories, historical inaccuracies, and more. Compiled by David Chance, revised October 18, 2023.
Hyperborea, Hyperboreans, Hyperborea, see also Atlantis, see also Mu, lost continent. Contact Report 039.
Mount Shasta is an old volcanic mountain with a partially still unexplored area in America, or more precisely, in Northern California. The mountain is very rocky and extremely difficult to climb. In the interior of the mountain itself is a small city, which is inhabited by descendants of extraterrestrials and which, here and there, also receives a visit from their space brothers from outer space. It is a very majestic race, peaceful and good, but which anxiously strives not to be discovered by Earth humans. The entrance to their very deeply underground city is well camouflaged under the eastern mountain peak, and it is impossible for Earth humans to find it. But if Earth humans are ever found in their proximity, then they are made imperceptibly unable to move or distracted by the beam weapons that most of the city dwellers carry on themselves for security reasons. Their golden spaceships of a spherical form, for they master spaceflight, can sometimes be seen when they do not protect these from view. Human beings of this race are very well proportioned in their appearance. Their hair is mostly natural blonde, long and curly, which is very fit for their graceful Hyperborean nature. Sometimes, despite their shyness of Earth humans, they go into their villages to conduct unrecognized bartering with them, after which they depart and flee in a great hurry, however, if Earth humans come too close to them. But Mount Shasta is not the only place where this race lives, for already at very early times, they divided themselves into 3 smaller peoples, with the other 2 living unrecognized and deep underground on the Aleutian Islands and in Alaska. The whole population amounts to just about 700 human beings.
That is fantastically interesting. And now, a few things dawn on me. But you have just said something about their appearance, from which I could infer that with this race living underground, it concerns very distant descendants of the real Hyperboreans.
You infer correctly.
Man, that is incredible. Then these would, indeed, be the descendants or distant descendants of those who, 180,000 or 190,000 years ago, carried out the actual decolonization in the form that can be regarded then as the early history of the current human race, at least for the white race. Okay, then I have another question regarding Mount Shasta. I have already talked about this with Sim Yase, but something still seems unclear to me. Sim Yase told me that distant descendants of the Hyperboreans now live in Mount Shasta, on the Aleutian Islands, and in Alaska. Enoch, however, and also Emmanuel, spoke of the winds between the east and west, or between the north and west. From this, I always thought that the Greenland of the Hyperboreans, so Hyperborea, must have been somewhere far up north in Greenland or something. But now, this does not make sense anymore with Mount Shasta. What should I now think of this?
At the time of Enoch, the North Pole was situated differently than what is the case today. Through cosmic influences and through an upset of the Earth, the North Pole at that time shifted far to the west. The central point of the North Pole at that time is identical to present-day Florida in America. The polar regions at the time of Enoch were wondrous landscapes, filled with palms and other tropical vegetation. You would say that it was paradise on earth, for it had the most favorable climate of your world. Golden apples flourished and ripened there. These are simply called oranges today. In the timelessly young nature of Hyperborea, an uninterrupted summer prevailed, and it was also called the land of timeless youth. The most delicious fruits thrived there like nowhere else on the earth. The average annual temperature in the land of Hyperborea was 26.7 degrees of your measuring values, and the coldest season never sank below the value of 21.9 degrees of your current values. Similar conditions can still be found today in the former Hyperborea, so in Florida.
That is fantastic. But can you tell me exactly where at the North Pole this Hyperborea lay?
It lay exactly where the land is still called Greenland today, whereby the actual North Pole of that time is not identical with today's North Pole.
So Greenland, as far as I know, this means grassland in the German language.
That is so. Tir Nan Og lay there.
What is that?
Greenland and Land of Youth. But at that time, it was today's Florida.
So then Heracles, Gilgamesh, Enoch, Emmanuel, Amitabha, Methuselah, and Noah and all others were up there and not in Florida?
In Hyperborea, in Florida, when it was still at the spot where today the land still means grassland. But Emmanuel was not there because he was already in Florida, where it is to be found today.
Contact Report 069.
Further, other races of gigantic proportions populated all continents. Also, Cyclopes and Titans, as well as dwarfs, settled on all continents. They came and went, or they passed away for whatever reason.
Aha! Were the gods and demigods of Greek mythology such settlers from space?
Sure, they were a splinter group of descendants of the Hyperboreans.
Oh well, now I understand to some extent the connections. Good old Heracles said some very wondrous things, which just referred to it. But now I wonder how big these Hyperborean descendants must have been, because with Ascat, I once had the opportunity to see something that will probably remain closed to the Earth human forever. And exactly according to what I saw, these Greek mythology gods or demigods must have been several meters tall. Heracles alone must have measured about 3 meters, right?
Sure.
Contact Report 070 a note. See also Contact Report 703:23 to 25 for further clarifications of this section.
The distant land in the northern regions, where the climate was moderate and very good. These were those regions, which are traditionally known to you as Hyperborea and which were far in the north, before an upset of the earth shifted its axis so that the then regions exist today where you name Florida. Named after Aris II. The India of today was at that time called Aryan, which, however, split off from Hyperborea after a few centuries, after 210 years, to be exact, and joined with the inhabitants of Mu and Agartha, while from Hyperborea, Aris I constantly troubled Mu and Greater Atlantis by wicked war activities in order to become their ruler. So it only remains for me to report that Arus XI, as a very distant descendant of Aris I, was murdered in his old age many thousands of years later, and around 100,000 years after the destruction of Mu and Atlantis, by his third-born son Jehavon, after which this one took over command of the Hater people in order to rule these and 3 earthly peoples and the Hyperboreans himself.
Contact Report 505.
So then, first, a question about Mount Shasta respectively about the distant descendants of extraterrestrials who lived there, which I talked about several times with your daughter, Simya-se, but also with you. Quetzal once told me outside of an official conversation that you took all the inhabitants from Mount Shasta and on the Aleutian Islands and in Alaska.
That is correct. We have tried to get all the inhabitants of the 3 places to return to their peoples with whom they have always been in contact. We gave them the reasons for our own withdrawal from the earth which led to their withdrawal. Their dwellings and all the trappings have returned them to their original earthly state so that there is no longer anything to indicate their former presence. The process in this regard was the same as in the Pyramid of Giza and on Mars.
I understand. So then you did not take them away yourselves, but they left of their own accord with those who came from their original homeland, but simply on your advice. I have misunderstood something. But can you tell me where these human beings actually belonged, respectively to which people?
That is not a secret. They were distant descendants of a lineage of the old Lyrians, to which they also returned.
Then they are, so to speak, related to you, the Plejaren, because the Plejaren peoples came out of the old Lyrians.
That is correct.
Thank you. So there is now nothing in Mount Shasta, Alaska, or the Aleutian Islands that indicates their former presence?
That is also correct.
And may we know what you told them that they went away?
That is not a secret. The reason was that we too had abolished our stations on Earth and returned them to their natural original state. But it was important that we had included the inhabitants of all three places in our protection, which was not given after we had left. So a further stay on Earth would have been too dangerous for them.